there, I'm Elizabeth with LA's Handcrafted Jewelry.
My channel where I share tips, tricks, and tutorials for those looking to learn the art of wire wrapping and wire weaving. And today I'm going to be showing you how to create these adorable teardrop fringe earrings. They're super lightweight and really easy to make, so if you're looking to fill up your booth for the craft fair this year, these are really fun to do. It only requires a few different wires. You can actually just use some scrap wire if you have that, especially if you are using silver and you don't know what to do with it. Maybe you don't want to melt it down, or maybe you can't have it sent out or whatever. You can actually reuse a lot of materials to create these earrings. So in this tutorial, I am going to show you a few different techniques from a little bit of cold forging as well as primarily wire wrapping, and how to wire wrap itty bitty teeny tiny stones. So if you have those, great. If you don't, then you'll want to hear from today's sponsor, Kazdans.
It's hard to find quality stones out there and to know what you're getting when you're buying from overseas sellers, but you do not have to worry about that with Kazdans. They are based in the US and have high quality, gorgeous looking stones that will make your pieces pop and wow anyone who lays their eyes on it. From natural gemstones to glittery cubic zirconia in all shapes and sizes to fit your style and budget. Not to mention their amazing customer service. If you have any questions, they're quick to answer them and help you find the right piece for your project. So be sure to stop by their website and check out their amazing assortment of stones.
Alright, so for basic tools and materials, what you're going to need are, of course, chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, and some flush cutters. You're also going to need a chasing hammer and a bench block if you plan on hammering anything. I do recommend doing this though to add a little strength since you are making the ear wire itself. And of course you're going to need a ruler to measure out your wire. As for wire and materials, you're going to need some 20 gauge round wire. And you're going to need some 26 gauge round wire as well. You can use this also to wrap this portion here. In this portion I've wrapped it with 28 gauge wire. But for the actual wrapping of the beads, I use the 26 gauge because they fit through the tiny little hole really well. You can probably get away with 24 gauge if you don't have 26 gauge, but it's just what I recommend. You'll need a mandrel. And of course you're going to need some 2 or 3 millimeter beads. I got these from Kazdans. These are emerald. So I'll be using those for this tutorial today. All right, to get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a 3-inch piece of 20 gauge wire. So just going to straighten this out a little bit using my thumb. If you have scrap wire, you can measure that out and use it. Oops, can't see past my thumb. There we go. So there's my 3-inch wire. Now I'm going to take my mandrel and I'm going to go on the second step here. And I have a link in the description where you can find mandrels like these. They're not that expensive, but you can also use a pencil if you don't have one. And here I'm going to try and mirror rather than be exactly. So I'm going to go behind. Yes. And if I turn it around, it'll go the opposite direction. I'm just going to make sure this is rounded out nicely. Now I'm going to grab my ruler and I want this teardrop to be about 1/2 inch tall, which it is. From there, I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers. Squish this together. I'm going to bend this wire straight up where they meet. And then this wire is going to bend around the other wire. So we're just folding it over basically. So now I'm going to trim off this wire in the back until it's just able to be hooked around basically. just like that. And I dented my wire a little. From there, I'm going to grab my bench block, and I'm just going to hammer gently around the perimeter of this wire. And it's just a drop and drag. Almost like when you're dropping it, it looks like a J shape. And actually you're going to turn it so it's upside down so you don't see any of the hammer marks on the front side. So I have it upside down and then drop and drag. And there's my teardrop. Now I do recommend working on your earrings at the same time. That way you can keep them more symmetrical. But because I've already made mine, I'm just going to do my best to follow along and see how it goes. So you can compare, make sure that they're about the same size, which they are. And so at this point, I'm going to bend this forward, like so. I'm going to find my mandrel again. And on the second step, I'm going to bend it over, backward. Like so. I'm going to compare it to this one. So I know where to bend it at. Like I said, if you're doing it at the same time rather than doing it separately, it'd be a lot easier. I'm just going to trim it off. And now at this point, I'm going to hammer the side of this so it's a little bit more sturdy. Just a little drop and drag. And by doing this, you harden the wire as well as add dimension. So now the wire is a little bit more rigid, so it'll be better for earrings. Now if you have one of these are called cut burrs. These are really great for filing the ends. And you just do a little bit of this action for them to file down. Make sure if you're turning them, you turn in just one direction rather than multiple. You can just do a little bit of that. And that will file it down. You can also use some microfiles as well. Just whatever you have at hand to soften those. I'll leave some links in the description where you can find both of those. All right, so once we've completed our little earring here, we're going to set it off to the side. And now it's time to create the fringe portion. So I got my little beads over here. So we're going to need, I think, 9 beads. So 3 or 2. And I'm just going to kind of put them in order of how I want them. Okay. Set these off to the side. So I'm going to be doing 1, then 2, then 3, then 2, then 1 for the fringe. Here's what I mean. So I have 1, then 2, then 3, then 2, then 1. From there, I'm going to grab my 26 gauge wire and I'm going to feed one of these little beads onto my wire. Find the hole first, string it on, and I'm working from a bobbin. It's just a little bit easier for me. And I'm just going to take the wire, and we want to make sure we have enough that we can grab, so this is probably about an inch worth or so. Bending over, then wrapping it around the plier, using the plier basically as a mandrel, and wrapping, wrapping this wire around 3 times. So we have a tiny little loop. I'm going to trim that off as close as I can with my flush cutters. You can tuck that in, with your chain nose pliers if you'd like. From there, I'm going to slide my bead down to where it meets the wrapped portion. And bend this off to the side gently with my round nose pliers. And then I'm going to bring the wire up and over around my pliers, like so. And if you want, you can switch to your chain nose pliers, but I'm just going to hold this off to the side with my round nose. And we're going to wrap around a couple times on top, and then wrap around the bead, if you'd like to do this style, and around one time underneath. And we're going to trim that off and tuck it in. So tucked in the wire, and we have one little piece. Now we're going to do it with 2, and I'll show you in the next step how to add beads to each other and create links or chains. All right, so I've created my little link that we're going to be using in the fringe chain thing, and now I'm going to grab another bead and feed it onto the wire. Now I'm going to grab my round nose pliers, and again we're going to create a little loop, but we're not going to close it off just yet. We're going to leave it open like so, and then we're going to feed that little guy on there and grab our pliers, either chain nose or round nose, and now we're going to close the loop like so. Trim that off, and we're just going to basically do the same steps that we did, only this time it'll be with an additional bead on there. And when I come down to wrap around the bead, I want to go the same direction that I'm going with this one. So I'm going to go around and wrap that way. So you can see I'm going to start wrapping around the same direction that I did with the bottom bead. Like so. And trim off. And that's how you add beads. Or I should say, how you add more links to your chain for the fringe. So now we have the 2 sitting here. And now I'm just going to do the same thing with the remaining beads. So I wanted to show you too, if you happen to accidentally create the bead and close off this end, or I should say if you're working on this bead and you close off this end and you can't connect the 2, all you do is you basically just open up this end. So you just trim it off and then start to close it, just like you would as if you were making just one. I'm just going to stick that on there. And then you would just finish it off as if it were the other one. Wrap around a couple times, around the bottom. Oops. Just like so, and trim it off. Just one more bead to wrap. All right, so once we've gotten to this point, it's time to start weaving them on to our earring. And the way we do this is I'm going to start in the middle. So I'm going to fold this wire in half, basically. And then I'm going to feed it through And I'm going to wrap it around one time. Like so. And kind of have it just off center. Then I'm going to grab my middle piece of fringe, bring it up, and I'm going to wrap it around, but this time when I'm wrapping it, I'm going to be very mindful not to wrap it too tight because we want our fringe to dangle a little bit. So it should just be off just a little bit, and then wrap it around again. One time. And squeeze these together. Do my best to keep this kind of at the middle. I'm going to wrap it around one more time. Now we're going to string on the next one, which would be these two, making sure that our spirals are going the same way that are on our beads. Make sure there's a little gap when we're weaving it through. So bringing it through our teardrop, not pulling too tight, just enough, and scooting down. Making sure that our fringe dangles. And wrapping around 2 times. And just pull just enough to wrap it around the teardrop, because if you pull too much, they'll pull this taut, and we don't want that too tight against the frame. There we go, just like that. Now I'm going to grab my last little bead over here, making sure it's going the same direction. Feed it onto the wire. Then we're going to wrap it around the teardrop. Making sure there's a little gap. Then we're going to wrap it around 5 times to finish this side. Then we'll start wrapping the other side. From there, we can trim off our wire and tuck it in. Now to go the other way, remember not to pull too tight. I'm going to wrap one more time, since we just have one wrap there. I'll wrap it one more time around the teardrop frame. Pick up our next fringe. Oops. Feed it onto the wire. And wrap around, making sure that we're not wrapping too tight. Leaving just a little gap. And around a couple times. Now I'm going to pick up the next piece, the final piece. String it on. And then wrap 5 times around the outside. Making sure we leave a gap for this to dangle. And if this is slid off to the side a little bit, you can probably scrunch that. From there, I'm going to trim off the wire and tuck it in. From there, you can also compress the wire if you'd like on the frame. Just make sure it's all even. And there is your little dangle. And so you should have a nice set after you're all done, but this is kind of what they should look like. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all, go ahead and leave them in the comment section as I tried to get to them as quickly as I can. If you're new to wire weaving and want to learn more about the craft, I do have a free ebook which is called Weave with Wire. I have a link in the description where you can find that. And I also have a beginner course for those that would like to have all the information that they need in one place. Links are in the description where you can check those out. And until next time, happy weaving.